Grief isn't just about death. There are so many other losses that a person can experience that is not just about the death of your person, the death of your loved one. There are many other losses that a person can experience that can bring on the feeling of sadness, emptiness, brokenness. All of these things can affect us, and yet no one died. But a lot of times we don't talk about that. We're only talking about the death. Grief isn't just about death. Sometimes we experience a sense of loss that comes from no one dying at all. And we call these silent losses. And the reason that I'm talking about them is because they can attach to a loss due to death, number one. Number two, they can give us a grieving experience just like a death that also needs to be taken care of. We have to acknowledge them and take care of them as well. It can make it harder for us to even notice or understand. The reason that they're called silent is that society and us, the griever, often overlooks them. We don't give them the credit that they deserve. We put them on this shelf that we call the lower shelf. No, it's just something that happened. It's life. This is how life is going to be. We might not even recognize them as a grieving experience. And that's the thing that I think happens to most of us is we don't truly even recognize them as a grieving experience. Why silent grief? Silent losses go unnoticed because they don't fit the usual idea of grief. And society has taught us that we have this limited amount of time to grieve when someone dies. And if they barely give us a limited amount of time to grieve when our spouse died, and they give us even less time to grieve when our parents die, how much time do you think they're going to give us for a silent loss? The other thing is they have no say over it, but yet for some reason we allow them to have all the say that they need over this grief. For a young age, we learn that if someone dies, it's okay to grieve, but what if we lose something else? Something that's important to us, something that's really important to us, like a job, a relationship, a sense of self-worth, a feeling that my life is just not as happy or fulfilling as I want it to be. What if I'm dealing with a ton of anger, but I really don't know where it's coming from? Society tends to dismiss this as just life problems. I'm here to tell you that those are fully our grieving experiences. Moving and leaving all of your friends and family behind. Listen, you're 10 years old. You've been in the same school since first grade. You have one best friend, and her name is Teresa. And you guys have sleepovers, and you do a lot of things together. You went to the fair together. You sit next to each other in class. She lets you borrow her pencil. You dress alike on Twins Day. You tell everybody that Teresa's your best friend. You don't feel comfortable with other of the kids in the class, but you and Teresa seem to hit it off really well. You hold hands. You walk to line together. You sit next to each other at lunch. You tell each other secrets. She is your best friend. But Dad got a new job, and you're moving from California to Michigan. But Mom promised you we're coming back to visit. I promise you we're coming back to visit. And you believe, Mom, that you're going to be back every summer. And you and Teresa hug each other and you cry. And her mom and your mom hug each other and they cry. And they know what this means. And you get in the car and you drive cross country. You've now left your house behind. You've left your best friend behind. And the summer comes, and Mom says there's no money to go back to California. And you never get to go back to visit Teresa. In the beginning, you guys kind of write, but then that kind of weans off. And you never talk to Teresa again. That is a silent loss that most people do not even acknowledge as grieving. It is a full grieving experience. Leaving the state that you were raised in, leaving the house that you only knew your entire life, and leaving your best friend. Now, if you get to your new school and you're getting bullied at the new school, that just adds icing on the cake. Being bullied is a silent loss. Society doesn't always recognize silent losses. Society is pretty comfortable with the idea of grieving for a death and all the grief that follows it. And even though they put their time frame on it, it doesn't acknowledge that you can grieve something other than death. A divorce, infertility, huge silent loss, loss of faith. Your loss of faith is a grieving experience that will affect your heart just as if, and sometimes more, than if you've lost someone. It is a relationship. Your relationship with God changes. That is a grieving experience. But often it's overlooked by you, it's overlooked by them, it's overlooked by anyone that you're reaching out to for help. The other reason why we call it silent grief is because you choose to grieve silently within it. Because of this, people grieve their silent losses. They don't receive the same support, acknowledgement, understanding, caring that a person with a death would receive. When someone dies, everyone comes to your house. They all bring the potato salad, they bring the ham, they bring the bread, they start cleaning your house, they help you get things together. When your relationship with God changes, maybe one or two people will come over and sit by you and give you some Bible verses to hopefully build you back up. But that is such short-lived. We don't see it as a grieving experience. We don't see it as broken. That little girl who lost the best friend, Teresa, has never gotten over that. It has stuck with her all of these years. And when I see Sarah, 40 years later, she's still grieving the loss of Teresa. It is still in her heart. Why am I saying this? Because many times when grievers come in to do their work with us and we go through their relationships, one of the things that will come up is what happened to them when they were 10 years old. Silent loss is often thought of as personal or private losses. These are personal and private to you. Some silent losses are very personal, and that's true. Going through foreclosure is personal. Bankruptcy is personal. Losing your self-worth, questioning your sexuality, questioning your faith. These might be things that you may not be open to sharing. You may not open up about them at all, a little or not at all. A miscarriage, multiple miscarriages, an abortion. Especially in early pregnancy, people tend to not share their miscarriage. They often keep it very private because these losses are not shared openly. It becomes hard for others to understand how to deal with this because most of the people in society don't share their infertility pain. There's a lot of infertility groups, but miscarriage, stillborn, unable to have the child that you've always dreamed of, those are true losses and mostly dealt with silently. Silent losses are often hard to identify. Silent losses aren't always easy to recognize. They come up a lot when we're doing our grief work, but in the beginning, when they first start, we don't recognize them as grief, and so we don't even associate them as a grieving experience. Many people see them as obstacles or something, a bump in the road that they just got to get over. Oh, this is a little bump in the road, I got to get over it. There's a lot of times where I'm on my lives and a woman will come in and say, I've had multiple miscarriages. I had a miscarriage. And they just want acknowledgement of who they are. Sometimes they want to know, am I really grieving? Can you imagine that? That is your baby, your child that you lost. You were their mama and you lost that child. And I don't care if it's 4 weeks, 6 weeks, or 20 weeks. That is a true loss experience to your heart. This makes it difficult to heal and to move forward because these little areas of loss are all still stuck in our heart. And because we don't acknowledge them, society doesn't acknowledge them, we find it hard to move beyond this pain. Because what happens is a multitude of these little bitty losses, or we think they're little bitty, are starting to attach to a major loss that we have. It is not uncommon for us to have a major grieving experience and the silent losses come flooding forward. Guess what? Once they come flooding forward, they are no longer silent. They are alive and in real color, in living color, and they have to be dealt with. And if you, the griever, were to deal with them every little step of the way as they occurred, it would be so much better for you. By dismissing these experiences, they can cause other challenges in our life. We miss that chance to grieve. When we miss that chance to grieve those things, they hang on. They don't go anywhere. It is difficult to heal and move forward because we've missed the chance to get them every single time. Can it be done 20 years later? Absolutely. Can it be done along with another grieving experience? Yes. Here's the other thing. A lot of times a griever will come in and they're having a loss due to death. But guess what's coming up for them? And they've connected to that loss due to death. Their best friend, Teresa, that they had to leave in California when they were 10 years old. Mom has died. They come in to do their work on mom. And as they're doing their work on mom, they realize that they held some pain in their heart towards their mother for the lie that she told them, or they perceive as a lie, that they were going to go back and visit Teresa. Guess when I'm grieving Teresa? At the same time that we're grieving mama. Because they've connected. Even sometimes it's dad, and that loss of Teresa has connected. People are often caught off guard with how difficult it can be to grieve when there is a ton of silent losses stuck in our heart. We are not great at predicting how we will feel in the future. We are not. Losing a job, losing your career, getting a setback, having to move, losing the bid on the house, your dream house, they're all extremely important to us. They all hold value. But for many of us, we don't identify them as a grieving experience. Unlike death, which we know as a full grieving experience, we don't give the credence to this loss. We need to, as a society and as a people and as a humankind, understand that silent losses are real. All grief is felt at 100%. The loss that I felt in my 10-year-old self, my 10-year-old little heart, from leaving Teresa behind, is felt at 100%. That doesn't mean when I'm 40, I'm still feeling it at 100%. But when I was 10 years old, I was feeling that at 100%. We can better support ourselves and others through these tough times when we take moments to think about the losses you've experienced that aren't tied to death. Think about them, be willing to process them, be open to them, recognize them, and move towards them as part of your healing. That's huge, friends. Many of these losses are overlooked. They're not given credit. We do it to ourselves, and society is also doing it. And the other thing is we get embarrassed. We're not even really sure. Should I be grieving this? Is this a grieving experience? Okay, as part of the podcast, I always add a few grief questions. And so journal questions, they're great for you to go and grab. I'm going to read a couple of those. What is the loss you've experienced recently that isn't related to death? What is a loss that you have experienced recently that isn't related to death? What do you think about your silent losses? Which ones stand out the most to you? Here's the deal. When I had said this, what do you think about your silent losses? I'm letting you know we all have them. When I lost my fur baby, my little puppy, at 5 years old, that dog that followed me around everywhere, that golden retriever that slept in my bed, That is an absolute loss. When I was 12 years old and I left my bike outside and that bike got stolen, that was an absolute loss for my 12-year-old self. When I went to meet my boyfriend and someone broke the window of my car and stole my purse and my computer, that was an absolute loss. All of those are losses. Do you all need to come to the grieving school because you lost your computer? No. But there's a lot of times where you will come in and these things will start to show up for you. Is there a loss you've experienced that you think deserves more attention now that you are on a true grieving experience? What would it mean to you if you fully acknowledged all of your silent losses? What would that mean to your life? What would that mean to your soul, your spirit? It's there, friends. Arguing with your family and friends after a loss the way things should be done is a grieving experience. Getting married to the man that you love and having the two families fight is a grieving experience. Getting married to the man that you love and now getting into a fight with your sister and it gets into the way of your relationship is a grieving experience. There are hundreds of thousands of events that happen in our life that cause grief, and we need to, as a society, start acknowledging that. Thank you, friends. If you're not wanting to journal the questions, definitely take a look at them. Go in, take a look at them. Ask the question of yourself and answer it within your brain. There's huge discovery when a question is asked. Huge discovery in your heart and soul. Now, I want to leave you with this. My name is Sharon Brubaker, and I am the owner of the Grief School, the place where women come and where healing begins. I teach 3 distinct programs. The number one is because people need to talk about their grief, and it is called Study Hall, and it is a grief support group for women. It is on Tuesday at 1 p.m. Central Time, and it is absolutely free, and we'd be honored to have you in that group. It is an amazing group. I teach a lesson, we ask questions, we share, we break down grief, we talk about grief. So many different aspects to the grief is done there. Second, I teach processing the pain of grief. How do you grieve? What's the first thing I'm supposed to do? Why does this feel so bad? I'm still here in this grief and it feels really bad. Processing the pain of grief is where I teach you the definition of grief. I teach you the two different types of grief, intellectual grief and emotional grief. I teach you how to break down grief, different ways that you can grieve. I give you options of different ways that you can grieve. I explain them intently, why they feel this way and how it's supposed to happen. And then you take this information back and you start your grieving process, or you alter the grieving process of things that you've been doing that just didn't feel right. It is a 4-week program. We meet twice a week, once for processing the pain of grief and once for book club. It's an amazing program, and we start on the first Tuesday of every month, and we run for 4 consecutive weeks after that. It's a great program. Second, I teach grief healing. That's the place you come when you're ready to work on your grief and move beyond the grief and get to a better place to start living again. Grief healing. It's 12 weeks, various times that they start. Do you have to do all 3 of them in order? Absolutely not. But there are 3 amazing programs that I teach. Processing the Pain of Grief and Grief Healing you can find on my website, and they are paid programs. I want to let you know that not only am I giving you a ton of value and information on grief, that I also teach you. Okay, friends? So glad you joined me. See you in the next podcast. Definitely follow me on my Facebook page, TikTok, Instagram, anywhere you can find me. I will definitely be there, and I show up live quite often. I'll see you around. Bye.